is so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. Cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been showing that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. We'll match you with the perfect buddy. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
We're offering you a free membership, so please sign up today. Share this with your friends and family, and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a buddies network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the last show of the year of Pursuing Profit with Principles. It has been such a great time these last several months as we've been together every Monday morning to be able to share with you some things that can hopefully improve your life, your business, relationships, all of that. As you know, my main focus is profit in your business. But there's a lot more involved in gaining that profit in your business than just focusing on your business. Our businesses really become most successful when we're well rounded. And I want to talk about that this morning. We may be joined by some others this morning. There were some folks who were going to do their best to get in here. And if so, we'll welcome them in when they come. But what we wanted to visit with you about today is growth for the new year and the things that you need to focus on to create that growth and that success for you in the new year. So I want you to think about today what you would like to experience over the course of the next 12 months. What is it that you want to have happen, not only in your business, but in your life? You know, we want to explore a variety of areas in our lives. So our financial expectations is one area. You know, what do we want to achieve in our finances? What do we want to achieve in our career? What does that look like? Because that's different than finances. Finances are a result of what we're achieving in our career, right? Um, Also, we want to look at personal growth, spiritual development, hobbies, taking time out for fun and play, our health, and what are our relationships, and finally, what are we contributing to the world in terms of our legacy? So those are just a few of the areas that we want to take a look at. And I want you to think about two things. And we're going to cover some of this next week also with the panel that I'll be bringing on next week. We're going to talk about intentions relative to goals, the difference between the two, the similarities between the two, and how they work together. This morning, I want to focus a bit on intentions and then how we put those into motion. So, as you look at your intentions for next year in those areas we've just mentioned, what are your intentions for 2022 in terms of your career? What is it you would like to see happen? For me, one of the things that's on my list, and I have a list for each of these areas that we just talked about, but one of the things that I have on my list is to be a speaker at least five or more um, events, whether virtual or physical. And so, I do participate in like online summits and seminars and things like that. But I want to go beyond that this coming year. I want to speak at more conventions, associations where all of my ideal clients are gathered, right? I want to be a paid speaker at those events. So there are certain things I have to set in motion in order to achieve that, right? I have to have my speaker sheet available. My website, my speaker website needs to be complete and needs to have on it examples of when I've spoken at other events and the feedback that I've gotten from those events. So that's a piece of it, right? I need to have at least those two elements in place, and there are probably some other elements that need to be in place. I need to have my testimonials out there for when I have spoken at other events. What's been the feedback that I've gotten from that? I have to identify what kinds of associations or groups that I want to get in front of. I've spoken at state level Chamber of Commerce organizations. I'd like to do more of that. They have my ideal clients as their audience. So who has your ideal client in their audience that you want to speak in front of if speaking is one of your goals? And as you think about these intentions and these goals, and you think about the steps that you need to take in order to implement it, there's another piece that you need to look at, and that is, how will you know when you've achieved it? How will you know? Well, I'll know when I walk off, either physically or virtually, walk off of that fifth stage. I will know that I've achieved that goal of speaking publicly in that kind of arena 5 times for the year. When I walk off of that fifth stage, I'll know that. So what will it be that lets you know that you've achieved a particular goal? So let's switch that over to finances. Let's talk about finances for a moment. What are some of your financial goals for the next year? For me, it's being completely out of debt and having a certain dollar figure in my checking account or in my bank account. And how will I know? Well, those debts will be zero and that money will be in the account, right? What do I have to do monthly, weekly, daily in order to achieve that goal? It's great to have the intention, it's great to have the goal, but without a plan of action, it probably won't happen. And yes, the law of attraction is working for you, and yes, those intentions are working for you, but they all have to have action on your part in order to achieve them. So, what are the steps that you have to take to achieve that revenue goal that you're looking for? Um, how much money are you wanting to earn per month? What kind of client intake and client support does it require in order for you to achieve that? You have to break it back down. You always have to break it back down to, what do I need to do this month? What do I need to do in the next week? Today, what do I need to do? And that helps create your daily plan of action, right? So our daily plan of action should not just be responding to everything that happens in our life, but actually planning out our activities and taking the steps necessary. Yes, there's a certain amount of reacting that goes on, but without that planning and taking the necessary steps, it's very hard to hit the goal. So, what is it you need to be doing on a daily basis to hit that goal? So, what is your intention? What is your goal? And then break it back down. What do I have to do monthly, weekly, daily, quarterly? What are the mileposts that you're looking at? What has to happen at each of those mileposts? How are you measuring that? How will you know when you've achieved success on your goal? If you can't word it in such a way that you can physically say, when this happens, I'll know I've achieved that goal, then it still needs a little bit of work. Okay. It needs a little more refinement in order for you to be able to measure it, to know that you've hit the mark, that you've achieved what you set out to do. So let's look at some other areas in terms of this. So we talked a little bit about career and finances. What about relationships? So relationships for me is kind of a big one right now. I moved here to this area in Spring, Texas, in July of 2020. So shortly after COVID hit, shortly after the pandemic began. And as you can imagine, that limited my interaction with people in my community because we were all sheltering in. And due to our age and other factors, my husband and I have continued to, um, you know, kind of be withdrawn a bit from society in a lot of ways, um, to minimize our risks. We've both had some surgeries during that period of time, and it just, there's some issues that make us more um, or less resistant, I should say, to some of the things out there. So one of the things that's happened is I typically have a very active church life, and that's not happening right now for me. And so what I'm feeling is a loss of sisterhood, a loss of girlfriends, and those intimate relationships that we form with our girlfriends. And so for me, one of my goals this year is to develop those relationships within my area so that I have that support of my girlfriends. Now, I have the support of a lot of girlfriends around the world, in terms of folks that I have met in business, that I have served in business, people like Barb Beckley, who produces this show, uh, and others that if I named them, some of you would know them. But there's a difference in being able to actually be physically present with someone and being present with them virtually. So for me, one of my goals this year is to have more of those physically present relationships developed where I am locally. So what is it for you? What's in your relationships? Another is to really build more or better relationships with all family members, So what does that look like? And how will I know when I've achieved that? What does yours look like? And what is it? How will you know when you've achieved your goal in that area? What about health and fitness? What are your goals in the health arena? Well, I have several. I won't go into all of those for you, but I do have several, and they are measurable. How will I know? Some of that requires me to be logging certain activities that I do, and then to be able to show via that log that I've been doing it, that I've been achieving it, as well as the physical outcome that comes from it, whether that's a reduced body mass index, a reduced weight, whether it's more energy, the physical ability to do more things. How will you know when you've achieved your goal? First, you have to define it and set those intentions, and then work backwards from that intention or goal. Work backwards. What do you have to do daily? And then how will you know when you've achieved it? So then let's take a look at fun and playtime. And this is an area that I think I've neglected for far too long. And 2022 is going to be different. I and I was going to say that I'm planning play and fun time, but that's the wrong way to look at it. It's not that I'm planning it; it's that I'm planning my life so that that fun and play time occurs naturally within the scope of my life. I don't want to have planned playtime and fun time. I want that to be a natural occurrence in my life because my life is structured in such a way that these things naturally occur. I want my husband and I to be able to take more trips, to be able to do more fun things together, whether that's putting together a puzzle or playing a game of cribbage or cards or getting together with maybe another couple or taking a drive to the beach, which is not terribly far from here, but I've been here a year and a half and I haven't gone there yet. Those kinds of things. Um, what is it that that I want to have in my life from a play and fun time perspective, and how will I structure my life so that it occurs naturally, so that I spend more time with my husband. I mentioned puzzles. We've been married 5.5 years now. Some of you may know I was married for 44 years, and then I was widowed, and then I remarried, and we've been married 5.5 years. And we put together our first puzzle over the holidays. And it was just a little tiny puzzle about the size of a sheet of paper. But we did it together and it was fun. And I'm like, why haven't we done more of this? He loves to play cribbage. I haven't played cribbage much in a number of years. It would take me a while to get good at it again. But I used to play cribbage a lot. We used to play games a lot. My first husband and I, and with other couples. And I loved it. I enjoyed it. But for some reason, I've not structured my life in the last few years in a way that I can take advantage of that and enjoy that time. So how are you doing in the area of hobbies in your life? Do you have some hobbies that you like to do? I love to craft and to sew. I like to make jewelry. I like to make Christmas ornaments, uh, lots of other things, and I like to quilt. I saved a lot of clothing from my first husband when he passed to make quilts for my family members, for my daughter and my grandchildren. All of those things are still sitting idle. I haven't done them. So this year, one of the projects on my list is to get back into that and really enjoy my time crafting and quilting and doing those kinds of things. We have been joined by Miss Barb Ellison. Welcome, Barb.
Well, hi there. How are you doing?
I am great.
You know, God is so good to me. And yet, so often I put things and then either space it and go, oh, yeah. But this is perfect timing because what you were just talking about was getting back into my crafts.
Yes.
And because I love to crochet and I make baby
I do too.
blankets baby blankets for the We Care Pregnancy Center. And so often what happens, we get so caught up in the doing of the other things that we are doing because we do have bills to pay, we do have businesses to build, and yet how often do we forget to stop and take the time to do the things that bring us joy within
absolutely
ourselves.
Absolutely.
And I have to say, I have not picked up my crochet in probably 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's been way longer for me.
Why have I not done that?
You know, and I think it comes back to that we're not structuring in our lives in a way to be able to be well-rounded. We're so focused on the business. We lost your sound, Barb. There you are. Nope.
Nope.
There now. Yeah.
In other words, don't move. But it is absolutely the truth. We get so caught up, and in fact, just the other day, we were talking about we get so caught up in the doing, that we forget about the being.
Yes.
We forget about the being, and I am so guilty of that.
Oh, ditto.
Right at this moment. And yet, as a friend of mine says, we all have to give ourselves grace.
Amen.
When
we do
it, because it's pursuing profit with principles.
Yeah.
That is so important. It's having those principles. But if we don't acknowledge them within ourselves,
yep.
Oh, brother, because we cannot give to somebody else what we don't have ourselves.
Yeah, and if our tank's empty, there's nothing to give, right?
And so today,
we run it out a lot.
And you know what? So this has been absolutely an amazing thing to just sit here and go, you know what? Regina is absolutely right. I have got to spend. So guess what I'm getting out today? Is I am getting out my crochet and absolutely sit down, and even if you set a timer for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Set the timer and put it on your calendar. And that's one of the things that in the new year, one of the things that I am really going to be much more aware of. And I think that's where it starts, is being aware.
Yeah,
put it on your calendar. Crochet time.
Yeah. Time for me. That's
for
partly time for you.
Me time.
And it's part of your legacy and what you're doing because you're crocheting for other folks, right? It's part of the legacy that you're offering. And that's really important too, that, what is our contribution in our legacy, and making sure that we have some goals around that and some intentions around that as well. Right. I also loved what you said about being. I have this I was want to call it framework. It's not really framed, but anyway, this piece of art that just says, just be.
Just be.
Just be.
And how often do we forget to do that?
Exactly.
To just be.
Yeah.
We get, and I know this week, this is the aftermath of Christmas, of just having these last 10 days of being crazy. And and Barb Beckley and I have talked about it, the times that we have gone to Crazy Town and gotten lost there.
There's no road sign showing the way out, right?
There's no road sign showing the way out. And it's so funny, the times that we have talked about it, it's like one of us will bring it up that, oh yeah, yike, we were in Crazy Town, and we'll look at each other and go, oh brother, you too. And we've been in Crazy Town and not realizing that the road sign is there. It's called taking time for yourself.
Yeah. I kind of feel like the last 2 years have been a bit of Crazy Town.
Have been in Crazy. I have
hadn't thought about that until you said that, but I really feel like, for me at least, the last couple of years have been that. Started off 2020 with great intentions, great, had a wonderful planning meeting beginning of the year, and actually, and those of you who follow me on Facebook, you see what results in my planning meetings. It was not just a me meeting. I did have a partner in that meeting, but then COVID hit in March, and it just threw all the plans out of the window, kind of a thing.
Right.
And everybody, I think, was scrambling after that in many ways. So it's
and I think in
we
some
can
ways
take charge, though.
Right. And 2020 was crazy.
Yeah.
And then we thought, oh, well, it's going to get better in 2021. Well, 2021 was even crazier in some ways because so much of technology. Oh, well, we can do this. Oh, we can do that. Oh, we can do this. Oh, we can do it internationally.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of exponentially got a little crazier.
Yeah.
But now we're on the cusp of 2022.
Yeah.
This has got, and one of the things that I've heard repeatedly, that the 20s, this decade is going to be the decade of the women.
Interesting.
I have heard that from several places, that it is the collaboration and the cooperation and the connection.
Yeah.
All of those things.
Yep.
We must take charge of those within ourselves also, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love the words that you just used, and my word for 2022 is collaboration. And it's, how can I collaborate with others? How can I introduce other people to people that will, where it'd be a good fit for them? Right. How can I help them collaborate? How can I help propel people forward through those connections and becoming a better connector? I think I've been a fair connector of people, but I want to be a better connector.
Right.
I want to really help people find the people that they need in their lives. And it's such a reward to be able to do that, right? You do a lot of that, Barb.
I am really trying. That's one of the things that I'm really trying to do for myself also, is to find the people that will connect, that we can collaborate for the good of the people around us.
Right.
Because we cannot possibly know it all.
Yeah. And, you've talked about this, and others that we know have talked about this as well, but the phrase that comes to my mind right now is that life is a team sport.
Life is a team sport. You can't do, with me, I always say you can't do life on your own.
You can't. And we need each other.
Yeah.
My husband was reading something to me this weekend that someone in our church had said, and he said, oh, that's exactly what you talk about that needing to have those other people around you, that it's not just about you. And that's what, one of my goals has to do with enhancing my friendships this year, my relationships, both locally as well as globally.
Right.
And I think on the global scale, I'm in fairly decent shape, but on the local scale, not so much.
Right. It's so funny that you're saying that, because for myself, once in a while, I find I hibernate within, because I'm doing so much on Zoom.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't have to talk to my neighbor next door.
Yeah. Yeah.
you do.
Yeah, you do.
You do.
You know,
You have to be with the people who
you
are
do.
in proximity to you.
Yes. And we need to be reaching out to others who may be in need. We had, my first husband and I, we used to do Christmas breakfast. It started out as an opportunity for us to bring our local missionaries into our home from our church, bring them in and have them have a place where they had presents under the tree. Right. So we would have gifts under the tree for them. We bring them over for breakfast and then open presents. Well, then we started expanding that to including other people who might not have family around or whatever. And I mean, it grew and grew, and it was just the most fun thing. I look forward to it all year long.
Right.
I forgot where I was going with that, but it was such a great opportunity to serve, number one, but to be close to people. And so this year we invited that's where I was going with this. We invited our next door neighbor who lost her husband in July. And of course, Rendell and I, my husband and I, we were both widowed and then remarried. And so we understand what she's, the experiences that she's having. And so we invited her over for Christmas breakfast this year. And it was so fun to do Christmas breakfast again. We haven't done that for a while.
and you don't realize
it was just one person, it was just so nice to be able to do.
Right. That's exactly a man that I know. He lost his wife this year. And yesterday I just looked him straight in the eye and said, "John, how are you doing?"
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, "Some days it's," and I said, I totally understand. I said, my husband was a musician. And sometimes a song will come on the radio and I will literally have to pull over because the tears will be rolling down my face.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to drive that way safely.
It's really hard to drive that way safely. And he looked at me and he said, "Oh, I know exactly what you mean." He said, "I've had to pull over." And right in that moment, there was just such that feeling of connection.
Heart to heart.
Heart to heart. Eye to eye. Heart to heart.
Heart to heart.
And he would just, and he knew he wasn't alone.
Yeah.
And when we can have, even for that split second,
it's
that connection.
Yeah.
And I was so glad that I took that extra moment to say, "John,
to connect.
How are you doing?"
Awesome. That's awesome.
But that's what it's all about. And that's what this season is all about.
It is. And that's, that really encompasses all that we've been talking about this morning, is that yes, we want those goals and those intentions for 2022, and we need to know how we'll know when we've achieved them.
Yeah.
But it's all about designing our lives in such a way that all of that can take place, that we can have those relationships, that we can have those fun play times, that we can develop in all the areas we want to develop in. So I'd like to welcome Pat Iyer. Pat has just joined us.
Hi,
welcome, Pat. Glad to see you.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning. So I don't know if you've been following any of this, Pat, but we're talking about intentions and goals for the new year, as well as how we know that we've achieved those, but including in that way beyond our business and career intentions and goals, and including our personal life, our relationships, our personal health and well-being, our fun and playtime, that we need to make room in our lives for all of those things, so that we have that well-rounded perspective of life, and we're not just our business, we're not just what we do, but we are this well-rounded human being.
I just read something in a speaker magazine from the National Speakers Association that said, if you're too busy to take a walk and exercise every day, you are too busy.
You are too busy. I agree. And we're so focused on on these outcomes sometimes, and they are important, but they're a piece of the pie, not the whole thing. And we tend to treat it as the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
We get so singularly focused, and so my encouragement to everyone this year is focus more on the whole being and upon your entire ecosystem, even, not just you, but everyone in your ecosystem, in your life, and and make the time for not only yourself but for others.
Right. And for me, it's just what you just were talking about is like there's that graphic of the life wheel, the areas of your life.
Right.
Right now, I think there's a couple of the areas in my life that I've absolutely got a flat tire.
Oh, I know I do.
They're absolutely.
I have a few flat tires.
And it's like, but until somebody reminds us,
yeah,
we just talked about, we get so caught up in the doing,
right,
that we forget about the other parts of the being.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
and yeah, and comes back to that chaos that you talked about.
Yep. Crazy town.
Yeah, crazy town. That we've kind of been living in crazy town. So my encouragement to everybody is that you take the time this week to figure out what it looks like to step out of crazy town, find your way out of there, and find a way back to some balance in your life, some harmony. Maybe harmony is a better word than balance, because we tend to think of balance as, okay, we got to get these two things equal. Well, they're never going to be equal. There are things that they all have a place. They may not be equal, but they can be in harmony with one another, and so that your life is much happier, much smoother, much happier. Pat, comments?
Yeah, I think it's easy to get caught up in our sources of frustration. I heard a wise person yesterday when I was taking my walk, and I was listening to a podcast, and he said that most people wake up thinking about what happened yesterday, thinking about and reliving the past. And instead, if you wake up and you say, what opportunities do I have today? What positive thing can I create? How can I go a step forward in my life? It makes a huge difference.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Absolutely. And ladies, go ahead, Barb.
No, and just one step further, Pat, that was absolutely, because who's in charge of my schedule?
Yeah.
Who is in charge of my schedule? Well, guess what? Yeah, I am.
Yes.
So today I was that was part of my day for today, was to put into things into my schedule of just kind of the planning. And it's like, oh, right, Barbara, you hadn't even thought I was putting in all the big business rocks and not putting in some of the personal play rocks.
And those can be just as big, right?
And they should be just as big in some ways.
Exactly. So these areas become the big rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Ladies, we didn't introduce you. I'd like you to take a moment, tell who you are, since we started this program a little backwards. So Barb, would you take a moment, please? Tell us who you are.
Okay, well, my name is Barbara Ellison, and I'm on a mission to make happiness the norm rather than the exception. And for myself right now, I have realized that so many people are getting to their midlife years and are realizing that the life that they are leading is not necessarily the one that they want, and they're not quite sure how to change it. And that has now become so much of a mission for me, to be able to help them to get in touch with who are they, and who do they want to be, who do they want to spend the rest of their life being, not just in the doing. And so that's been a big a huge revelation for me I have had to go through it myself, of knowing who I was.
Mm.
And what my purpose was, and why did God put me here right now for such a time as this. And so that has been just absolutely and you've been with me through so much of this process of doing that. So I'm blessed.
Yeah.
I'm blessed.
Awesome. Thank you, Barb. Pat, share with us who you are and what you do.
I am an editor and a ghostwriter and a book coach who helps people express their knowledge in a way that's most effective for them to help promote their businesses. I teach people how to write books, and I am launching a program now to help people with other aspects of business writing, such as writing emails and blogs and website copy and articles and chapters, flyers, all the other types of business writing, in addition to writing a book, through the Business Writing Circle. And my website is patiyer.com. My last name is spelled only one way correctly, although many ways incorrectly. It is patiyer, IYER.com. And my husband is Indian, so it's easy to remember that I stands for India, IYER.com, patiyer.com.
Awesome. I know I struggled with your last name when we first met.
Yes.
And I'm sure I spelled it wrong at least once.
Well, it's been spelled Tyre and Eilers and Ayers and Liar and any variety of ways, but only one correct way.
Only one correct way. I love it. That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you ladies joining me this morning here on the show. And folks, I hope that you'll take some time this week, that you've maybe thought ahead a little bit and marked out some time on your calendar to actually think about what your life looks like over the next year. You know, not just the goals, the business goals, things of that nature, but what does your life look like over the next year? What you want it to look like, and that you create some plans around that. And think about all the areas of your life. What are the goals that you need to accomplish in, as Barb mentioned, that wheel of life, or we talked earlier about 9 different areas of your life. What do each one of those need to look like for you to have that harmony in your life? And when I think of harmony, it speaks so much more to my soul than balance does. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's a different connotation completely for me, harmony versus balance. I like that. Okay, revelation to Regina.
But you know what, Regina, that is absolutely why I love doing these calls and why I love having conversations with other people, just because sometimes it does trigger an instant of awareness.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
To me, if we has coaches and has book editors and has podcast hosts, if we can spark one moment of awareness, that every person can take and see, oh, and we just watched you do it. Oh, I like that better. When we can take that time and show people that, oh, everybody does it, and that we can, and that it can happen that easily, from one thing leads to another, to another, to another, to another.
Those light bulb moments, right?
Those light bulb moments that sometimes you can see from space.
There you are.
Yep. And I would like to build on that, Barbara, by emphasizing that many of us spend time in regret and guilt and focus on things that have happened that we can't change.
Right.
And we have multiple ways that we can beat ourselves up for not having done what we should have done, or not turning out as perfect as we think we should have turned out. And all of that is such a waste of energy, and it sets up this negative cycle of I'm no good, and life is always going to be frustrating. My husband, as I mentioned, is Indian, and one of his classmates is chronically miserable. Every time my husband gets off the phone with his friend, he says, he's unhappy about, and he can list 3 things, to the point that my husband doesn't want to call him anymore because he brings him down so much.
Yeah.
I see that as such a waste of energy and time, because, we're all at the point in our lives where we recognize that time goes one way. You have what you have today. There's no guarantee of tomorrow. And for many of us, we're looking at some distant horizon, hopefully distant horizon, that we will no longer be alive. So why waste opportunities and time by getting mired in the muck, and instead say, what can I change? What can I improve on? What can I do better? What can I use my life for to help other people and share my talents and my knowledge with other people in whatever form that takes, instead of saying, oh, poor me. Well, we all have things that we've done incorrectly that we regret, but you can't get stuck on them. You have to say, 2022 is a new year, a new time to reflect, to think about what you want to change, to think about how you can make your life better. Seize this opportunity. No one's going to do it for you. You have to be in charge of your own life.
Right.
Well said. And such a perfect wrap up for what we've been talking about, because as we look at our goals and our intentions for 2022, the only thing we can do anything about is the present moment. The past is past. We're working towards the future. We know where we want to go, hopefully, and we've created a plan for it. But the only thing you can impact is today, this moment, right now.
Right.
Are you doing what you need to be doing right this moment to create the future that you want to create?
Right.
Because, as Pat said, the past is, there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
It's
and
gone.
There's a book out called The Traveler's Journey. And one of the chapters in there is that you can either moan over the past and the lost opportunities, or you can say exactly what Pat just said. What am I going to do right now? To go to either rectify, if there's something you can do about something that you've done in the past, absolutely go back, make restitution, but then let it go.
Right.
Then let it go.
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
it's over.
Yep.
It's over. But now
Absolutely.
what are we going to do going forward? And Pat, that is such a timely reminder. Such a timely reminder.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you, ladies, for your contributions this morning. I really appreciate you coming on and the wisdom and the value that you've brought in this morning. Thank you so much. And folks, we will see you next week when I'm joined by my mastermind panel again. And we're going to go a little deeper into this subject of intentions versus goals. So hope you'll join us next week, same time, 8 o'clock, Monday morning, Central Time. Bye for now.
Thanks for having us, Regina. This is great.
Thanks for